Her sister was just trying to enjoy a peaceful afternoon in her own backyard. But when a neighbor angrily spat in her face, a simple home dispute exploded into an all-out war, with a powerful civil rights attorney ready to bring the fight to their doorstep. Jenna gripped the garden hose, water spraying wildly as she tried to regain control. Across the fence, Margaret's eyes bulged with rage, her wrinkled face contorted in a twisted sneer. "How dare you let your dog crap on my lawn again?" the elderly woman shrieked, saliva flying from her lips. Jenna felt it hit her cheek, a hot, wet slap that made her flinch. "I'm sorry, it was an accident," she pleaded, heart pounding. "I'll clean it up right away." But Margaret's gnarled hand was already reaching for the wooden slat, yanking it free from the fence. "You're going to pay for this, you little brat." Jenna watched in horror as the makeshift club swung towards her head. She ducked just in time, the wood crashing into the hose with a deafening crack. Water sprayed everywhere as the torn hose whipped around, soaking them both. Margaret screamed in fury, raising the broken plank to strike again. Jenna stumbled backwards, her foot catching on a garden rock. She hit the ground hard, the air rushing from her lungs. "That's it, I'm calling the police," she gasped, scrambling to her feet. But Margaret was already storming back towards her house, clutching the broken fence post like a weapon. "Go ahead, you little brat. See what good it does you." Jenna watched her disappear, then bent over, hands on her knees as she fought to catch her breath. Her heart was pounding in her ears, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She couldn't believe what had just happened. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out, "Jenna, what on earth?" She looked up to see her sister, Lily, rushing towards her, face etched with concern. "Are you all right? I heard the commotion all the way from inside." Jenna quickly explained what had happened, watching Lily's expression darken with every word. By the time she finished, Lily's jaw was set in a hard line, her eyes narrowed. "That woman has gone too far," she growled. "This isn't the first time she's pulled something like this. I'm calling my husband." Jenna felt a surge of relief. Her brother-in-law, Mark, was a renowned civil rights attorney. If anyone could put Margaret in her place, it was him. "Just let me know what I can do to help," Jenna said, placing a hand on Lily's arm. Lily nodded, already dialing the phone. "Don't worry, Jenna. We're going to make sure that witch gets exactly what's coming to her." Mark's brow furrowed as Lily relayed the latest incident with their neighbor, Margaret. His grip tightened on the phone, knuckles whitening. "That's the last straw," he growled. "I'm going to pay a visit to the HOA president first thing in the morning." Lily exhaled shakily. "Thank you, Mark. I can't believe she had the audacity to actually spit on Jenna." "Unacceptable," Mark said flatly. "This kind of abusive behavior has gone on for far too long. I'm going to make sure the HOA takes immediate action." The next morning, Mark strode into the HOA office, his imposing presence commanding attention. The president, a meek-looking man named Mr. Wilkins, paled visibly at the sight of the renowned civil rights attorney. "Mr. Finley, what can I do for you?" Wilkins asked, his voice betraying a nervous tremor. Mark didn't mince words. "Your neighbor, Margaret Hendricks, assaulted my sister-in-law yesterday. She needs to be held accountable, and I expect the HOA to take swift and appropriate action." Wilkins fidgeted uncomfortably. "Well, you see, Mr. Finley, Margaret is a long-standing member of the community. We've had some issues with her in the past, but nothing," Mark interrupted, his tone sharp. "This is unacceptable. I want a formal written reprimand issued to her immediately, and a restraining order put in place to prevent any further contact with my family." Wilkins swallowed hard. I'm not sure we can do that, Mr. Finley. The HOA bylaws." "I don't care about your bylaws," Mark said, slamming his palm on the desk. "This is a matter of basic human decency, and I will not stand by and allow my family to be terrorized by a vindictive, abusive neighbor. Now you can either take action, or I'll take this straight to the media and let them decide how to handle it." The color drained from Wilkins' face. I'll see what I can do, Mr. Finley. But you have to understand, this isn't an easy situation." Mark's eyes narrowed. "Make it easy. Or else." As he strode out of the office, Mark's mind was already racing, planning his next move. He wasn't about to let Margaret Hendricks get away with this. Not this time. The next day, a bright yellow envelope arrived in the Finley household, bearing the official seal of the HOA. Lily tore it open, her face lighting up with a triumphant grin. "They did it, Mark," she exclaimed. "Margaret has been issued a formal written warning and a restraining order prohibiting her from coming within 50 yards of our property." Mark nodded, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. "I told them they had no choice. Now, the next step is to make sure she complies." Lily's expression darkened. "I doubt that's going to be easy. You know how stubborn and vindictive that woman can be." Just then, the sound of angry shouting erupted from the backyard. Lily and Mark rushed outside to find Jenna confronting a fuming Margaret, the restraining order clutched in her hand. "You can't do this," the elderly woman screeched. "This is my neighborhood, and I'll go where I please." Jenna stood her ground, her voice firm. "The order is clear, Margaret. You need to stay away from our property. If you refuse, we'll have no choice but to call the police." Margaret's eyes narrowed to slits, her wrinkled face contorting with pure malice. "You think a piece of paper is going to stop me? I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years, and I'm not going to let some upstart brat tell me what to do." She took a menacing step forward, and Jenna instinctively backed away, her heart pounding. But before Margaret could get any closer, Mark stepped in, his towering presence casting a long shadow over the elderly woman. "I'd strongly advise you to reconsider your actions, Mrs. Hendricks," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "The restraining order is legally binding, and any violation will result in serious consequences." Margaret glared up at him, her lip curling in defiance. "Consequences? Ha! I'll do whatever I please, and there's nothing you or your precious little family can do about it." Lily placed a hand on Jenna's shoulder, her expression grim. "We'll see about that, Margaret. You've pushed us too far this time, and we're not going to back down." The tension in the air was palpable as the two families stood, locked in a silent battle of wills. It was clear that the war had only just begun. The next few days were a tense standoff, with Margaret seemingly determined to test the limits of the restraining order at every turn. She would linger just outside the 50-yard boundary, glaring menacingly at the Finley family as they came and went. Lily and Mark remained vigilant, ready to call the police at the slightest provocation. But Margaret was cunning, always finding ways to skirt the edges of the law without crossing the line. One afternoon, as Jenna was tending to her garden, she noticed a strange, foul-smelling substance seeping through the fence from Margaret's yard. Horrified, she realized it was motor oil, slowly dripping into the soil and killing her plants. Barely containing her rage, Jenna raced inside and called the police, reporting the illegal dumping. When the officers arrived, Margaret played the innocent bystander, feigning ignorance and claiming it must have been an accidental spill. The police had no choice but to let her off with a warning, much to Jenna's frustration. As the officers left, Margaret shot the young woman a vindictive grin, clearly reveling in her ability to avoid any real consequences. Lily, upon hearing the news, was livid. "That woman is truly despicable. We have to do something to stop her before she destroys our entire yard." Mark's brow furrowed in deep thought. "I have an idea, but it's going to require some strategic planning. Are you both willing to take a big risk?" Jenna and Lily exchanged a determined look. "Whatever it takes," Jenna said firmly. "We can't let her get away with this any longer." Mark nodded, his eyes gleaming with a steely resolve. All right, then here's what we're going to do. Over the next few days, the Finley family put Mark's plan into motion, their nerves on edge as they waited to see if it would work. The stakes were high, but they were done playing by Margaret's rules. The plan unfolded with meticulous precision. Jenna and Lily carefully documented every instance of Margaret's harassment, taking detailed notes and photographs to build a comprehensive case. Meanwhile, Mark quietly reached out to local news outlets, planting the seeds for a potential media expose. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. Jenna was in the backyard, tending to her beloved garden, when she spotted Margaret lurking just beyond the 50-yard boundary. Taking a deep breath, she approached the elderly woman, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Margaret, I've had enough of your harassment. If you don't leave our property immediately, I'm going to call the police." Margaret's eyes narrowed to slits, her lips curling into a malicious grin. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere, you little brat. This is my neighborhood, and I'll do as I please." Jenna steeled her nerves, her fingers tightening around her phone. "I'm warning you, Margaret. One more step closer, and I'm calling the cops." The elderly woman let out a harsh, cackling laugh. "Go ahead, call them. They won't do anything. I know how to play this game, and I always win." With that, she took a deliberate step forward, breaching the restraining order. Jenna's heart raced as she quickly dialed 911, describing the situation in a trembling voice. "There's an emergency. Please send the police immediately. My neighbor is violating a restraining order and trespassing on our property." As Jenna waited for the officers to arrive, Margaret stood her ground, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. But just as the elderly woman opened her mouth to taunt Jenna further, a chorus of sirens pierced the air. Margaret's face fell as the police cars pulled up, and she reluctantly stepped back, cursing under her breath. The officers quickly assessed the situation and placed her under arrest, much to her indignant protests. Jenna watched with a mixture of relief and satisfaction as Margaret was led away in handcuffs, her shrill cries echoing through the neighborhood. She knew this was just the beginning, but it felt like a significant victory in their ongoing battle. The news of Margaret's arrest spread like wildfire through the community, and soon reporters were swarming the Finley household, eager to get the inside scoop. Lily and Mark seized the opportunity, granting interviews and detailing the years of abuse and harassment they had endured at the hands of their neighbor. As the story gained traction, the HOA found itself under intense public scrutiny. Outraged residents demanded to know why the organization had allowed Margaret's behavior to continue unchecked for so long, and the pressure mounted for the HOA to take decisive action. Under the glare of the media spotlight, the HOA president, Mr. Wilkins, was forced to convene an emergency meeting. Faced with a room full of angry homeowners, he reluctantly agreed to a full review of Margaret's case and the HOA's handling of the situation. Lily and Mark were invited to attend the meeting, and they wasted no time in laying out the damning evidence they had gathered over the years. From the illegal dumping of toxic substances to the physical assaults on Jenna, the Finley family painted a damning picture of Margaret's reign of terror. As the details unfolded, the HOA members were visibly shaken, their previous complacency now replaced by a sense of shame and outrage. It was clear that they had failed to protect the residents, and they knew they had to take swift and decisive action to regain the community's trust. In the end, the HOA board unanimously voted to revoke Margaret's membership and ban her from the neighborhood, effective immediately. The elderly woman's face twisted in a mask of fury as she realized her reign of terror had come to an end. As the meeting adjourned, Lily and Mark were surrounded by grateful neighbors, all of whom had experienced Margaret's wrath in one form or another. The Finley family had not only achieved justice for themselves, but had become a symbol of hope for the entire community. Jenna, who had been the primary target of Margaret's abuse, felt a deep sense of relief and empowerment. She knew that their fight had not been in vain. and that the community was now stronger and more united than ever before. In the aftermath of the HOA meeting, Margaret was served with a formal notice of her expulsion from the neighborhood. Furious and humiliated, she vowed to fight the decision, but her options were quickly running out. Undeterred, the Finley family continued to work with the local authorities, ensuring that every detail of Margaret's harassment was thoroughly documented. They knew that if she tried to challenge the HOA's ruling, they would need to be prepared with an airtight case. Meanwhile, the news coverage of the Finley family's ordeal had sparked a broader conversation about the abuses of power within homeowners associations. Angry residents from across the region began to come forward, sharing their own stories of HOA tyranny and the challenges of fighting back against entrenched interests. Sensing an opportunity to amplify their message, Lily and Mark reached out to local advocacy groups, seeking their support and expertise. Together, they began to organize a series of public forums, inviting residents to share their experiences and explore potential solutions. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people showed up to the first event, their frustration and anger palpable. They listened intently as the Finley family recounted their harrowing ordeal, nodding in solidarity and cheering when Lily and Mark outlined their plans for reform. As the momentum built, the Finley family's crusade against the HOA began to take on a wider significance. It was no longer just about their own personal dispute with Margaret. It had become a rallying cry for all those who had been bullied, exploited, and silenced by the unchecked power of homeowners associations. Sensing the growing threat, the HOA leadership went on the defensive, hiring high-priced lawyers and launching a public relations campaign to discredit the Finley family. But Lily and Mark were undaunted, their determination only fueling their resolve. "This isn't just about us anymore," Lily declared at one of the forums. "This is about taking a stand against the abuse of power and the erosion of our basic rights as homeowners. We won't back down, and we won't stop until real change is achieved." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, their cries echoing through the halls. The battle lines had been drawn, and the Finley family was ready to wage war. As the legal battle with the HOA dragged on, the Finley family continued to rally the community, their crusade against the abuse of power gaining momentum with each passing day. Lily and Mark leveraged their extensive network of contacts and resources to amplify their message, organizing protests, lobbying lawmakers, and pursuing legal challenges on multiple fronts. Meanwhile, Margaret, the once formidable neighbor, found herself increasingly isolated and marginalized. Her attempts to overturn the HOA's decision were met with fierce resistance from the Finley family and their growing army of supporters. Realizing that her options were rapidly dwindling, the elderly woman resorted to increasingly desperate measures, even going so far as to file a series of frivolous lawsuits against the Finley family. But Lily and Mark were not to be deterred. They responded with a barrage of countersuits, each one further solidifying their case and undermining Margaret's credibility. As the legal battles raged on, the media attention only continued to intensify, with the Finley family's fight becoming a touchstone for the broader struggle against HOA abuses. Finally, after months of relentless effort, the Finley family's perseverance paid off. The HOA's decision to revoke Margaret's membership was upheld, and the elderly woman was ordered to pay significant fines and legal fees. Humiliated and defeated, she reluctantly agreed to sell her home and move out of the neighborhood, her reign of terror finally coming to an end. As the moving trucks pulled away, the Finley family stood together, surveying the scene with a mixture of relief and pride. They had fought a hard-won battle, and their victory had not only secured justice for themselves, but had also paved the way for broader reforms within the HOA system. In the weeks and months that followed, the Finley family continued to advocate for change, using their newfound platform to push for greater transparency, accountability, and protections for homeowners. Their story had become a rallying cry, inspiring others across the country to stand up against the abuses of power and to fight for the rights of their communities. As Jenna looked out at the neighborhood she had once feared, she felt a profound sense of pride and empowerment. The battle had been long and arduous, but in the end, they had emerged victorious, their family and their community stronger than ever before.